both of you. Rina, I'd like to begin with you and Donald Trump's latest comments on abortion and abortion limits, telling Fox News, "I'll be voting no in Florida," but he also indicated in comments to NBC News that he supported limits that might go past that. What do you make of those comments? Do you think that's a specific strategy there?
I think these comments are in line with Donald Trump's personality versus the actual strategic vision for how his campaign messages on the topic of reproductive care and access. We all know abortion is on the ballot this November because we've seen Republicans lose when it shows up on the ballot in places like Kansas and Ohio. What we see overall also are independents and center-right women pretty galvanized by these draconian bans in places like Arizona and also in Florida, where Ron DeSantis signed that 6-week ban in the dark of night. So again, Trump is flip-flopping here because he's not quite sure what's going to work. He's had severe backlash this past week from the anti-abortion movement. A lot of the pro-life evangelicals who've been by his side for about 8-9 years now are saying that they don't feel obligated to vote for him because he will not explicitly commit to a federal ban on abortion.
Well, on that topic, and Richard, coming to you on this, there was some reporting in the Washington Post today saying that in North Carolina, some Democratic voters are uncomfortable with the focus from the Harris campaign on abortion rights. What do you make of that? Do you think the Harris campaign is leaning too much on it?
Absolutely not. Look, there are people in the Democratic coalition, some who obviously are not as supportive of abortion rights as most Democrats are, but they still very much consider themselves Democrats. And this notion about what Trump is saying, the Senate, the United States Senate, had a vote on IVF and whether it should be protected. And all but 2 Republican senators voted against it, not to protect IVF. I just don't know why anybody assigns any value to anything Trump says about anything, because he'll say something today, say the exact opposite tomorrow, and the opposite the next day, and the staff will try to explain it. And none of it makes sense. It's just whatever happens to be handy at the moment. So, no, I don't think Harris has anything to worry about being foursquare behind abortion rights.
Well, the Harris campaign will be heading to Detroit, then on to Pennsylvania. We also know that Trump will then hold a video call with members of the United Auto Workers Union in Detroit. Rina, I just wonder what you think that tells us about how much these battleground states are still up for grabs, still in contention here.
Well, I think the strategy we've seen both tickets employ in the past couple of weeks have really made the 43 other states feel kind of left out, as 7 states are going to determine the outcome of this election. And so, look, what we're seeing by Harris and Walz really focusing on the Rust Belt, ever important is Pennsylvania, no doubt, but they need to perform well in the Rust Belt while still performing well in the Sun Belt states. And I'm talking Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, where Trump has traditionally had a lead. So right now, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You're seeing the campaigns, again, try to be everywhere and talk to everyone they can right now because the time is so short. Early ballots are already going out, and in just a couple of weeks, we'll see some of those ballots submitted. So there's a really intense window here through which they have to make the play. And I think the play for Harris-Walz is that the economy matters to us just as much as immigration, as well as reproductive rights, as well as geopolitical tensions.
I mean, many people would say, as you were just pointing out there, Rina, that the introductory phase of this campaign is sort of over. You know, Indeed. Time is fast approaching to get to actually submitting ballots. And Richard, of course, we did see that sit-down interview from Harris with Walz. What next do you think she needs to do to go beyond that sense of the introductory phase being over?
Well, first of all, this debate on September 10th will be enormous. I have to imagine from everything that's coming out of Donald Trump's mouth, he is scared to death to be facing up to somebody who is quick on her feet. You know, he's saying that she's dumb. She will very much prove herself not to be dumb. Like everything else Trump says, it will be totally undermined. So I think what she needs to do is convey to the country that I am indeed looking for the future. Pick your issue, climate change. I want to tackle it. Trump does it. Gun safety. I want to do something about it. Trump wants more guns on the streets. Healthcare, I want to protect it. Trump wants to undermine the Affordable Care Act, and the list goes on. And I think she wants to convey that she really is looking out for the middle American, and Trump's just looking out for his rich cronies and taking the country back when he says, make America great again. It's back to like the 1950s when blacks, Hispanics, Arab Americans, women didn't have the votes that the impact that they have today in the political process. I don't think there's a majority in the United States for that.
And Rina, to you on that point, what are you anticipating from the debate on the 10th of September? We know that the Trump campaign wants the mics muted when a candidate isn't speaking. The Harris campaign wants the opposite. I mean, how do you think his campaign team will be trying to prepare Donald Trump? What kind of performance will they be trying to hone?
Well, I think speaking to that issue on the mics for a moment, that's because, of course, the Harris-Walz campaign wants to continue to paint Trump out to be exactly who he was in 2020, the losing candidate in that presidential election, unstable, untrustworthy, the chaos candidate, if you will. But this past week in her first sit-down interview with Walz by her side, she did do steady. She didn't help herself and she didn't hurt herself in that interview. And I frankly, as a political strategist, think that was the job. She just had to establish a good foundation. And now she has to appear more often and she has to drill deeper. She has to give more details on the policy. I have often felt, Helena, that this election is about personality versus policies. But given that she's been the VP for 4 years and the strategy from the right has been to paint her as a failure in the White House alongside Biden, she's going to have to divorce herself of Bidenomics, speak a bit more clearly and more detailed about how she's going to be different than President Biden in her economic policies. And then again, also drill deeper on certain other issues when it comes to Gaza or fracking, explain her evolution there a little bit more. And so there's a tall order for her in this debate, but I think she can do it because she, again, laid a good foundation this week.
Rina Shah, a political strategist, and Richard Goodstein, a Democratic strategist. Many thanks to you both. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, 2 women were killed